So, Tim, I'm going to read an introduction, which is something I haven't done before, but I'm going to go for it. So, today I'm thrilled to be joined by Tim Freke, a pioneering spiritual philosopher and thinker who's just launched a bold new project that he calls a Podbook, and it's called Why Your Life Really Matters. It challenges decades of his own ideas, which feels like a bold rebellion against the status quo in which spiritual teachers and philosophers rarely ever openly evolve and challenge their own claims. In this work, Tim shares his most evolved view, which is that our human individuality is our real identity. We're not really something else like consciousness. The universe is a real process of evolutionary emergence, not a dream to wake up from. And that humanity is in the process of making the next evolutionary jump, which he sees as the jump from individuals to unividuals, individuals conscious of unity with the universe. So we thought this would be a perfect moment to revisit Tim's influential book, Lucid Living, which uniquely articulated the idealist view found in most Eastern non-dual teachings that what we really are is pure consciousness, and that rather than being in the world is within us, such that we're consciousness dreaming itself to be a dream character. In this book, Tim inspired many people to wake up inside this dream and experience life as a lucid dream. It worked astonishingly well for many people, including myself, and it turned out to be a double-edged sword, which we'll get into more later. But today, Tim will share what he still holds true from that vision and what's evolved, which will give us a glimpse into your groundbreaking new project. And this conversation holds special personal meaning for me, as many people, including myself, have had both positive and adverse effects of these teachings that shift us into seeing the world as an illusory dream and ourselves as mere dream characters in consciousness. And most importantly, that it's the absolute truth that can't be questioned. It's led many people into everything from disassociation and depersonalization to nihilism, and in extreme cases, severe dysfunction, and even people reportedly taking their own lives after things have spun out into crisis levels. And many of us have made a journey away from self-negating non-duality towards rebuilding reality with an integrated sense of a real personal self in a new way. In Tim's journey, from first having told us, "Psst, wake up, you're dreaming," to now saying something more like, "Psst, wake up, you're not dreaming," offers very unique insights for those who are looking to disentangle from this dream world perception and rebuild a sense of self in reality without losing a profound sense of unity and wonder. So let's dive in, Tim.
Fantastic. I love the switching around the last line of lucid living from "Psst, wake up, you're dreaming" to "Psst, wake
Mhm.
up, you're not dreaming." That's
Wow.
yeah, it's a great way of putting what's happened for me.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention that the pod book, Why Your Life Really Matters, will be linking to that in the description, so everybody can access the chapters that are out there. I don't know if there's anything that you want to say just initially about the pod book, how it's released, how people can.
It's free.
Mhm.
I've decided not to do it as a book. It's the cross between a book and a podcast. So it's the organization of a book with the immediacy of a podcast like this. That's me talking, and it's really sharing what's happened since lucid living, and not just saying why I think that was not right, but
Right.
the way a very positive vision, I think, of how we can understand this mystery of life that we're in, and it's exciting. It's going to be big, and there's quite a few chapters already out, and I love it when people tell me what they think, because if we work on it together, who knows? Maybe we'll gain some more wisdom.
I think it's fair to say that you are not threatened by criticisms, critiques, questions, and challenges. So
Well, I'd be in trouble if I was, because I do it so much to myself. I'd be like some sort of schizoid person if that was the case.
yes, exactly. Okay, so I think, yeah, on that note, what we're gonna do is Lucid Living took you through it was a pretty short book, to be honest. I think it was less than 100 pages.
It's very short. I mean, the whole history of it is fascinating, Jessica, really. I mean, I've got to say, I'm looking forward to doing this conversation because it's one of the favorite books I've written. I mean, I'm so proud of it. I really am. And, people started calling it a spiritual classic. And in a way, I kind of wrote it to be that. I wanted it to be like the books I loved, like the Tao Te Ching or the Dhammapada, these tiny little books that had lasted for centuries and centuries. And I felt we should. I should aspire at least to try and do something like that, and felt like I'd done a pretty good stab at it. So here I am a few years later, well, whatever it is now, 15 years later or something, going, that it's exciting, it's sobering. I think what happened for me is that the first period of my work as an author, I wrote about all the spiritual
Mhm.
traditions of the world and kind of saw them all through this idealist lens, where idealist means everything's in consciousness, that idea. And was able to articulate the perennial philosophy, the idea there's a common philosophy.
Mhm.
And having done a lot of books on all of these traditions, got to the point where it felt like what I need to do now is what my heroes have done or
Yeah.
try, which is
Yeah.
articulate that vision for now in a
Mm.
new way that people can get and keep it as simple as possible. And I set out to do that. And a friend of mine gave me their flat where the mountains of Mourne come down to the sea in Northern Ireland. And it was
Mm.
gorgeous. And I was given this flat to be in. And I was writing this book and I'd written, I don't know, 30,000 words and it was rubbish. And it was full of quotes by Rumi and
Yeah.
Bodhi Dharma, and it was just rubbish. And it wasn't what I wanted. And then I was literally, I threw it in the bin. It was all in the old days when it was all typed out on paper. And there was one paragraph where I compared awakening to a lucid dream and called
Ah.
it lucid living. And I just went, that's it. Everything I want to say can be said with this one image. And so picked out this one paragraph and then wrote this very short book where the thing I'm proud about is that it was very much like, see it like this, see it like this, see it like this. It wasn't like a theoretical book in the sense that you were asked to believe a lot of things. It was like you were asked to see it like this. And I do think that's a great way to approach things. And it worked. But the problem, as we'll see, for me was I think I said it so clearly for myself
Mhm.
that I saw what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
And, and
And
then it all unwound. And it was, I see.
well, it's great to get more the backstory on the story, but I will just say before we go into the main claims and having you share your updated views on those, that it I can say personally how effective it was because I think halfway through that book, I was on the subway in New York City and boom, all of a sudden I was in a lucid dream. And the it's hard to understate how astonishing that shift was, and it for many months of my life created a lot of positive change. But as you know, and people who follow me also know, it also was that double-edged sword that led me to, I continued kind of engaging with you, and very quickly you started to say, well, actually, I think that's not quite true. But what I do want to highlight here, because you're saying that you were articulating something that a lot of your kind of spiritual heroes had been articulating. Let's say, for example, Nisargadatta, who we know influenced you quite a bit at the time. The difference was that you weren't saying, life is a dream, let's escape it and detach from it and renounce it or whatever. You were saying very clearly in this book that yes, life is a dream, you're a dream character, but engage with it more fully. It's miraculous, it's amazing. Have relationships, enjoy yourself, don't renounce it, fully embrace it. So that is something that I think is important to distinguish, that you were never doing the rejectionist view.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, and that is important because y it what I'm wanting to say is wrong is, philosophical. It's about how we understand the ontology, the nature of what reality is.
Mhm.
It's not that, which I just think is disastrous. So the fact that you had a bad experience when you encountered more self-denying, life-denying forms of this doesn't surprise me at all. I've always thought that was a mistake and fought against it. And so the book was that. I also want to say the thing I get here is I'm going to draw a comparison with science, not because I'm seeing myself like any of these characters, but just because it helps. What strikes me is we went to the moon with physics that was found essentially by Isaac Newton.
Hmm.
It works. It's just not actually quite right.
Hmm.
So that Albert Einstein came later and just went, do you know what? Gravity is not like that. It's, the whole of relativity physics. So that, and that probably will be revised as well, but it's closer. to the
Mm,
way it actually is. It is better. But that doesn't mean that Newtonian physics doesn't generally work. And it's the same kind of thing here. It's like, yeah, that'll work. It'll take you to a good place. And because there's positive intention behind what I do in lucid living, it's not a bleak place it takes you to. It's actually an amazing place. So it does that. And when people contact me still and go, oh, I had a huge experience, I'm delighted. How lovely for you. I think if you take it further, you can keep that experience and make it better and have a better understanding as well.
yes. And, from my perspective of pitfalls of that perception, a lot of the shift in the ontology that you share really solves those pitfalls.
Yeah.
So we'll go into that soon. And so I've got here the claims. So I think there's 8, and each chapter was one of those big, bold claims that you were in the book kind of presenting yourself as the mysterious stranger who comes and whispers in your ear these major claims. So let's just let's just dive in if you're good with it to the
Yeah.
first one,
Yeah.
which is life is a mystery.
Still right. No problem with that.
Okay.
And what that does really, I think, is always useful because no matter how much we know, life is limitlessly mysterious and anything can happen and one can learn more. And what that does and why I still use that idea is it goes, have an open system. Be
Yeah.
willing to see that there's something you've missed, maybe a lot you've missed. And so having a sense, I never lose that sense of the mysterious.
So if I could say something here, because recently you put out a video and maybe a YouTube short, but essentially you were kind of challenging a little bit of the view that's very popular in especially New Age spirituality, which is so centered on mystery and not knowing anything to
Right.
the point where it's sort of like having any ideas or interpretations is not spiritual and is bad. And you said something to the effect of enjoy the mystery or experience the mystery with the best ideas that you have. So, how are you balancing those 2 out? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. Thanks for making it. So, well, in lucid living, I'm going to go on again to go, it's a mystery. Try seeing it like this.
Right.
It's like the mystery is always there because there's always more.
Yeah.
But it's a prequel to, right, now what's your best ideas? Because actually you can't live in the mystery. This is something I used to call, well, I still do, paralogical thinking or paralogical processing, which is dealing with paradox, which comes up later in lucid living, which is you can have both. Right now, I'm aware that I've got also. I'm having a conversation with you on Zoom. We're discussing my book. I know loads of things, but I can also be aware of how mysterious it is to be alive in a universe which is utterly enormous and life and death and meaning
Yeah.
and so the two sit together. And so if you don't have a sense of the mystery, you're really stuck in your way of ideating and missing an aspect of reality. But conversely, if you think you can just have mystery,
Yeah.
well, you can't. You could,
Yeah.
you wouldn't even know how to say the words. It's a mystery unless you had some understanding, obviously.
And some people do get to that point.
And it's not
Um,
good. It's not, that's not good, which is why I rail against this superficial spirituality, which says these things, which sound good, but if you stop and think about them for a moment, they're really not. Although those
yeah.
people probably don't think it's a good idea to stop and think about them either. So,
Yeah. And they're being told dogmatically not to. But
yeah,
yeah, that's a really great point because I think that what I've kind of learned along the way after leaving the type of kind of spirituality that says that, basically the spiritual state that you should strive to be in all the time is one where you have no ideas and no interpretation, none of that, is that having, some type of worldview or sense of ontology or whatever it is, some sense of what this is, doesn't need to negate the mystery. It can almost enhance it and make it even more inspiring. So, that's a great one. It's a subtle shift, I would say, on your part. Now, the next one is, yeah, I'll see where you go with this one. It's now is all you know. What
wrong.
would
You're clearly wrong. I mean,
why was you wrong?
well, because it's exactly the same kind of sounds good, but stop and think about it. That I was just criticizing other people for, and here I am doing it myself. Sounds great. Yes. Now it's all you know. No, now is what you're experiencing. It's
Hmm.
not all you know. You know all sorts. And if you didn't, if for this sentence I'm speaking to make sense, you must know more than the syllable I'm saying now,
True.
because otherwise you would have no idea that there was a sentence which carried meaning. Your understanding of the reality of the past is absolutely central. If you do not have that, you are not enlightened. You are in very bad trouble. And so, no, now is not all you know. So the idea that somehow you've got to just focus on the now and ignore everything else, you could be wrong about the past. Of course, you could be wrong about the past. That's one of the points I make in that little section. How do you know you're not wrong? Well, you don't know you're not wrong, but you don't know you're right about the now either,
Yeah.
because you're interpreting this. You're categorizing all of your experience, both your sensory and imaginal experience. You're sensing and making sense of everything. And that's all done with ideational categories and instinctual categories. So this is already going through a process. And the important thing is you've got the best process you can lay your hands on. So
Yeah.
you've got the best understanding of it that you can find. But the
Hmm.
idea that somehow you could focus on this thing called the now, which is the moment where things are forming new, is really important, of course, but that's not all you know. Of course, yeah, that's superficial.
Yeah, it's a really easy view, I think, to fall into. But I will say here that maybe you could say something around experiences of timelessness, because I understand that you're not negating those or putting those down, but how do you view experiences that feel timeless now, which still have a lot of value?
Yeah, so I would say now that we're conscious of whatever we pay attention to. So
Mhm.
consciousness, I would see as a form of high definition processing. So wherever I put my consciousness, like there, oh, I'm processing that now. My left foot, now I'm processing that. Whatever I focus on, if I then go into altered states, different states, spiritual states, where
Yeah,
I'm not paying attention to change, where, especially in deep meditation, for instance, then um, you don't experience time. Now, that doesn't mean that time hasn't moved. I mean, I've had amazing experiences where there's been no experience of time,
yeah.
and then when time has reemerged, I've gone, oh, that lasted for 20 minutes or whatever it
Right.
is, because time still happened.
Mhm.
And it's like going, well, where you put, if you don't put your attention on something, it's like with the whole thing with the self. We may discuss this later. If you take your attention away from yourself totally, and it's a really great thing to do,
Mhm.
you will experience the absence of self. But that doesn't mean yourself is absent any more than if I go to when I go to bed at night. The fact that I'm unconscious of my bedroom doesn't mean the bedroom disappears or my
Right.
body that's sleeping. It just means I'm not paying it any attention.
Mhm.
And therefore, if I go off into a dream, I'm paying that attention,
Yeah.
because wherever I pay attention, that's what I'll be conscious of, which is the common sense view, really, isn't it? And I think that's right.
It's a super helpful shift. I found very liberating that just because you're not aware of something or you're super honed in on, something other than, the self or time does not mean that it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So,
and the dream analogy or the dream comparison, it's not an analogy in that I just made. I think it's really helpful because, if you had one of your kids or if one of my kids came to me one day and just went, Dad, uh, I went to a world and I didn't exist and the world didn't exist. None of this is real because I've been to a world where it wasn't there. I go,
yeah.
no, that's not. Whoa, don't go down that path. That way lies madness. No, you're just dreaming. That's all. And
Hmm.
and and so when people have these profound, and they are profound, they're really interesting experiences where, if you go to a place where there's not just like, oh, there was kind of no sense of time. I lost sense of time. We all have that. But those really full on things where there's just light or, all those, these are deep and important. But when you come back, the conclusion isn't, well, this must be an illusion then.
Right.
It's just you weren't paying attention to this. And then
Yeah.
when you pay attention to that formlessness, let's say, or whatever you want to describe it, God, then you're
Yes.
aware of that. And having time off from paying attention to yourself, fantastic. But don't come back and then go, well, that's because you don't exist.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
you just had time off from yourself.
Right. It's a lot like I think a lot about flow states where we get into flow states all the time, but we don't come out and then say, there's no me or there's no self. So,
Yes, exactly right. Exactly right.
all right, let's shift to the next one. This is a big one. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
You are not a person.
Yes, you're not a person. I looked at the quote. You may have it there as well, but I
Oh,
looked at the quote I'd stolen it from because this is a stolen line. And,
okay.
and and it's stolen because it had this particular quote had a huge impression on me. I put it in some of my books, where
Okay.
I experienced a profound sense of no self. And it's from Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj.
Right.
And the quote is, have your being outside this body of birth and death, and all your problems will be solved. Undeceive yourself and be free. You're not a person. And when I first read that last line, you're not a person, it was like being pinned to the wall because it was like, well, that's my most fundamental assumption.
Right.
And it's being questioned. So it's kind of exciting. And I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And then one day I did. One day it happened. Once, I was just working on it, working on it. In fact, actually, I was repeating the line over and over again to myself. And then
Mhm.
bang, it happened. And there's something interesting about that as well. Like what made that happen? And certainly, if you all your personal problems will be solved if you think you're not a person. That's kind of a tautology. It's like, yep, it will. But I think it's disastrous and not right. And so the idea here is, there's two yous. There's the what I call the essential you and the
Mhm.
apparent you. And I did it in this way because,
In the book, right?
yeah, in Lucid Living, because that was a softer image. I mean, lots of people will say that one's real and one's just rubbish. No, not
True and
true.
false. True self, false self.
Yeah, I didn't go down that road. I went, look, there's what you appear to be, like in a dream, and then there's what you are, which is the dreamer.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely analogy. It's not right, but it's a lovely, lovely, simple analogy. And it's going, you're this presence of consciousness. That's what you really are. And we can go into what could that actually mean if you push it? What does that actually mean to be a presence of consciousness? And then Tim's what I appear to be. But you've set up this dichotomy between the two. Now you can still go, well, the dreamer and the dreamer one, and they kind of, that's okay, that's true. But you're really going, this other thing is your real self. And like Nisargadatta says, if you just let go of your apparent self, you'd have no problems.
Right.
And that's the idea that you're trapped and you need to escape, and all that negative side of non-duality, which, yeah, I don't like.
Yeah. And that's really the core of, so much of the popular non-duality today, a lot of which comes from Advaita, for example. But, again, that whole idea that, you need to get back to what you really are, and who you think you are is really sort of this false appearance. And again, there's that difference between the teachings that say, you should reject that appearance, or that, the purpose of awakening is to permanently dissolve that false apparent self. Whereas you've always been saying your essential identity isn't the person, but yet the person, whatever you were referring to it as, or this appearance, is wondrous and amazing, and live it. But I wanted to read a quote because you read a good quote, but just so that to hear how you wrote about it in the book. You wrote, right now you appear to be a person in the life dream, but this is only your apparent identity. It's not who you really are. Your essential identity is awareness witnessing a life dream.
It's not who you really are.
It's that.
Yeah, it's like look, it's very attractive. Most of us, all of us, struggle with being a human being, because being a human being is really quite difficult. It's
Isn't it?
beautiful and amazing, and it's also hard. So when someone comes along and goes, you can get rid of all your problems, like Nisargadatta has there, because that's not really who you are. And you can poof, and you find out who you're already perfect. Who would have thought it? Brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And all you got to do is get rid of this bit that isn't perfect. And it's very seductive. But even with my soft version, you're being told you're not really Jessica.
Yeah.
Whereas where I've ended up, for all sorts of reasons that will keep coming out, is I want to go, no, you're really Jessica. And that's hard and beautiful and amazing, but you really are Jessica, and I really am Tim. I'm not something else. Now, that we're all arising within this one universe, and there's a level in which there's one of us, which is on the very, very foundational level, not awareness, but foundational level. You might call it being. There's the oneness of being is being everything, and we can go, oh yeah, there's one of us, but also you're Jessica, and it's not you're really something else. And the thing about the oneness of being is it's not more than Jessica, it's kind of less than Jessica. Because Jessica is the oneness of being that's been on a hell of a journey through 14 billion years of evolution to become a human being. So it's like, it's not like, well, Jessica's lesser and then you're this, you're this. No, it's the other way around. The
Yeah.
foundation is beautiful because it becomes everything amazing, but it's foundation, it's less. You are more emergent than it. You're the most, or not, you're more emergent than it. You are it at its most emergent. And it's like when I go in that chapter, I think it's in that one where I go, look, what, I say, I have a mind, not I am a
Mm.
mind, or I have a body. And it's like, what? And so it gives this idea you're something else, which has these things. Whereas now I would go, I have a mind because I'm a whole system of which the mind is one thing and the body is one thing, but I'm a big evolving system, which includes the psyche and the body.
Yeah.
And I've arisen from the universe. And I'm that. There's
Yeah.
not, there's not, there isn't an observer and me or observer and Tim. Tim is
Right.
the observer. And,
Mhm.
and what's so astonishing, of course, is that every kid knows this. This is pure just common sense. And what's fascinating about some philosophy and spirituality is how far it can take you from common sense.
Hmm.
Now, common sense is not always right. Common sense can be very, very wrong, of course,
Mhm.
but often it's common for a reason. So the fact is, most people will go, well, what do you mean? I'm looking at my hand. I'm the observer and the observed. What? But when you come to spirituality, it's there's the experiencer and the experiences, and you've created this dichotomy between this presence, which has what is it? Which is
Yeah.
somehow the observer, and then all of your experience and your body in the world. And it's very seductive because it's unusual, and
Mhm.
I'm sure we'll get into this in the next question, but the next point. But what you see is, and this has been what's been so fun. This is the good side of being wrong. Is absolutely seeing. Oh, it's obvious. But how you ideate, meaning what ideas you use to interpret, to make sense of your experience, you
Mhm.
will experience the world in that way. So if you think Jesus is my Lord and Savior, you will experience it like that. And you'll
Mhm.
go, oh, yeah, it works. And you can, like you did on the tube, wherever you were, reading the book and go, oh, I've got it. And I make this explicit. That's what's so interesting, because right at the beginning, I draw an analogy with the experience of looking at the dotted pictures that can become a 3D image.
Mhm.
You're looking at it and you're thinking it's just dots, it's not just dots. And then suddenly it goes, oh, 3D image. Oh, wow. And I think that's a great analogy because that's what happens with ideation. So for me, with Nisargadatta, I heard him go, you're not a person. I thought, oh, wow. Yeah, right. I'm consciousness. I understand. I didn't experience it, but I understood it. And then one day the dots went bang. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, now I'm experiencing it. And the
Mhm.
mistake is to think that proves it. And it doesn't prove it. It just says you can ideate it in this way, and then you'll experience it in this way.
And that's the huge element that you speak about in the Podbook, Why Your Life Really Matters, is that shift in epistemology that really helps to unpack that the whole sort of like the loop of the pointers that, if you can this is true, now here's a way to experience it. Once you experience it, then it proves that it's absolutely true. So I don't know if you want to go there now, but what you just said, one of your key phrases is just because you experience it doesn't mean that it's the unquestionable truth. And what you had written in the book, let's just take the trope,
Oh,
gonna stick it to him. He said, awareness isn't something within your experience. It's an emptiness that contains all you are experiencing. Is that true? Try it out and see how it feels. Be the spacious emptiness of awareness within which everything you are experiencing exists. And this is exactly what you've now been sort of unpacking, where you've kind of said, I don't know, you said it in a little way of like a sleight of hand, or you kind of smuggled the answer to the question because you're saying, well, isn't it true? Try it out and be that, and therefore it's true. So it's really fascinating to see, how you used to set it up this way. That if I can show you how to experience it. You said also one time, you said that a lot of times with these pointers, it seems as though you're just saying, look over there, see the truth. But really you're saying, look over there with these ideas. And so I'm wondering if there's more that you want to say about that at all.
Yeah, this is absolutely crucial and a massive thing for me. Um, and as somebody who prides himself on being able to question things, I'm embarrassed it took me so long to see it because it's so obvious. But what's so interesting is that when I share it with non-dual teachers, as I have done a bit, it's almost impossible to get it across, even though I'll try and get it across here, even though you know what I'm going to say for everyone watching, because it is kind of obvious when you see it. And I think the best way to get it across is to use a quote from to move on to the next point, because
Oh,
I've
sure.
marked it. So the next one is the world exists in you. And that's the idea that you're this presence of consciousness, and this is like a dream, and Tim's in the middle of the dream. So the life dreamer, God, the consciousness is dreaming the dream of Tim or the dream of Jessica. And this is the paragraph that set me free.
Okay.
I think this is the one. This is when I got it eventually. And what I've said is this: if you pay attention to what is happening right now, you will see that you experience the world as a series of sensations, visual images, tactile feelings, background sounds, ambient aromas. And sensations exist within awareness, don't they?
Mhm.
Everything you're aware of exists within awareness. Otherwise, you wouldn't be aware of it. It's like, oh, yeah. And if you follow that, you will go into it. You may have listening to
Obvious.
it. Yeah, I can go into it now. There we are. But there's the sleight of hand.
Mhm.
And this is the what I see everyone is doing. It's just
Everyone.
the question is, and there's nothing wrong with it. The question is, are you conscious of what you're doing? And are the people listening? So if I say to you, at the beginning of my pod book, in chapter 1, I play with 3 or 4 different ways of seeing it and go, see it like this. Can you experience it? See it like this. Can you experience it? Not just can you think about it, which is good to do, but can you step into the world is like this? Because if you can do that, you can say, oh, that's what we're doing the whole time. And the fact that you can step into it and go, oh, yeah, doesn't make it true. And that's what I call the self-verifying loop. You set up a way of seeing it. You then go, see, you're experiencing it. Must be true then, rather than that's a way of seeing it that works for you right now. Maybe it's true. Try out
Mhm.
the other ways and see, because maybe they're true. So if I go into this one, because this is the key, the mistakes I make here, and it's the same mistakes that people like Rupert Spira and lots of other people that I've talked to and admire for what they've, in many ways, that they make exactly the same mistake. Um, so I'm saying, look, can you see you're experiencing the world as a series of sensations? Is that what I've done? I've said, this isn't the world, this is sensations. Is it? Is it? Or are you sensing the world?
Mm.
Is that, is that red behind me? Is that a sensation or is that a red wall that I'm sensing?
Mhm.
And then I go, they're arising within awareness. Are they? I'm saying that there's a thing called awareness which things arise within. Is there? Or is Tim, human being, conscious of, e.g., processing, looking at a red thing in high definition and going, I see the red wall? Now, that's the common sense view. If you brought a kid in here and go, what's happening? None of them would ever go, oh, well, there's a sensation arising in awareness. All of them would go, I'm looking at the red wall, because that's I think it's what's actually happening. I think it's true. I think you have to work hard to get into this rather convoluted thing. But my point here is not which is right and which is wrong. For
Mhm.
me, it wasn't like I flipped over and went, oh, no, it's the other way around. What happened was I went, oh, look, I have led someone into this. I fed them the idea that there's a thing called awareness.
Right.
Once they've accepted that, now I go, and everything's a sensation within it. Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Mhm.
And then having told them that, go,
Mhm.
ba-ba, I must be right because you're experiencing it. And I created the experience by giving them this way of seeing things. And then when they did, told them it was the truth. Rather than, which is more interesting, is to go, we don't know what it is. Can you experience it? Maybe there's a thing called awareness and everything is a sensation. Try that out. And
Yeah.
now here's another option. There's no thing called awareness. You're a human being who is aware
Mhm.
of sensing things in the world. And
Mhm.
let's evaluate which of those two seems most plausible. And so once I'd seen that, I could evaluate which two was more plausible. And the second one seems a hell of a lot more plausible than the idea that there's a amorphous thing called awareness, which has no qualities, but yet seems to generate the world. How it
Yeah.
generates the world, if it's got no qualities, I don't know. But, there's a whole load of mythos within all of that. So,
Yeah.
so the point I'm trying to make, just to be clear, is if these descriptions are conceptually laden, and at the end you're told no concepts, it's self-revealing, and it's not self-revealing.
Yeah.
It's conceptual, and it's inevitably conceptual. It's not like there's another version that isn't. Everything has to be ideated because otherwise you don't know what it is. So to
Yeah.
go, it's like a dream, you need all sorts of ideas to be in place. So I was fooling myself and then fooling others. I had talked myself into this state by reading Nisargadatta and thinking about it endlessly until it happened. I could then describe the state I talked myself into and talk
Yeah.
other people into it, all of which is fine. Maybe it's true, but maybe
Right.
it's not. It's not self-verifying. That's
Yeah.
the key. It is not self-verifying. And once you know that, then you can step back and go, okay, so there's options.
Exactly.
Which is the
That's
best option?
That's where the choice opens, and that's what's been so helpful for me because so many of the people that feel like they're suffering from any number of these beliefs, and it could be a fundamentalist Christian view, a fundamentalist Muslim view, or a fundamentalist non-dual view where the real trap is feeling like, well, I can't experience reality in any other way now because I know that, let's say, the world is a dream is the ultimate truth because I experience it that way now. So I've proven it as self-evident. So to be able to have those tools to unpack that and to even be able to start to question, well, just because I was able to experience it doesn't necessarily prove that that's the only possible way it is. So it's extremely liberating. And maybe I should have read this earlier, but I just want to give you another one of your own quotes related to this. In the book, you said, lucid living isn't believing the theory that life is like a dream. It is directly experiencing the dreamlike nature of reality in this present moment.
Yeah. And again, if that is done with the understanding that this is a way of seeing it that may or may not be the best way you can find,
Mhm.
then great. Much better to actually, you can read books and and have a whole lot of ideas, and you're just looking at the ideas. And
Yes.
there's a big jump between that and actually stepping out into, but do they work? And how does my experience change when I ideate the world in this way? That's a good thing to do. As long as you don't
Yeah.
think, well, like you said, if you'd spoken to me when I was 20, I'd be here going, Jessica, you don't understand. I know that my guru is the Lord of the universe because I've experienced this. And it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, you just think that, Tim. And it's working for you. You're seeing him as the Lord of the universe and you're having a great time. But sooner or later, you'll recognize, oh, he isn't the Lord of the universe. And then you won't experience it like that anymore.
Right. Right.
So
Okay.
can I throw a couple more quotes that I've marked out here, just because
Uh,
it's a, I
Perfect.
don't know really. I
Take
mean, I'm a
take
bit
your time.
reticent, but this is actually someone else. This is Rupert, who I had a conversation with right at the beginning of this process.
And when you say Rupert,
Rupert Spira, sorry, Rupert Spira, who I had a conversation with on my What is Life series, which I was only just beginning to be able to try and articulate. It was really hard, and it didn't get very far. But this quote really captured it for me because it could have been me. So it's not about Rupert. This could easily be me. But he says, there is no evidence, zero, that there is anything outside awareness. Have
Mhm.
you ever found a world independent of your perception? No, yet we presume it's there. And it's like, wow, that is so, like, it's just, you just stop and unpack that. All it's saying is there is no evidence that you've experienced a world when you weren't experiencing it. It's like, Of course not. Of course not. Hasn't
Well,
proved
no,
anything. Hasn't
right.
said anything. Hasn't
This
said anything at all. It's a completely vacuous statement that sounds like it's really profound.
and you find it everywhere, and it convinced you, it clearly convinced me. Is there a way that you could, because this has been coming up again a lot for me lately, where I can find myself almost getting sucked into that again, but for me, it's like, just because can you read the first part of that quote again?
Yes. So this Rupert says, no, there's no evidence, zero, that there's anything outside awareness. Have you ever found a world independent of your perception?
So, the fact that you can't have an experience without perceiving it, in no way does that necessarily mean that there's nothing
Well, look,
external,
I
right?
mean, it's just
How is
crazy. It's
that
like,
the room?
have you ever seen the moon when you weren't looking at the moon?
But
No,
it
of
still
course you
makes
haven't.
those questions work so well that makes it feel so obvious, and it where you said that sleight of hand, like, to me, it's hard for me, to now be seeing under the hood of that because it just was so seamless. Like, "Oh, of course, you're right." So, there is no bottle here. There's just my sensation of the fingers
Mm.
sensing a sensation, but not a thing out there.
Oh my God, the bottle disappeared. It doesn't exist anymore. I can't see it. It must not exist.
Or just, projecting my awareness.
One of the funny things is that in child psychology, it's one of the very first things that children learn is object permanence.
Right.
So when you do peekaboo with a baby, the reason they find it so funny, psychologists believe, is because you just sit, you're there and then you disappear. But at a certain age, it's not very old, they realize you don't disappear
Hmm.
and that you're still there. And then eventually that won't be funny anymore. If I did peekaboo with you, you wouldn't be there laughing hysterically. Well, you might actually, but because it'd be unexpected. But you know what I'm saying? It's like so we learn object permanence quite rightly. I'm in my office. I am quietly confident that after our conversation, I'll go in and make a cup of tea in my house and it will be there, even though I'm not conscious of it right now. So the idea that somehow it's reliant on my consciousness
Mm.
is a very superficial thing to say, and it's just vacuous. It says nothing. It says nothing, and that's my biggest problem with all of it. Really, is that it sounds pretentious, and
Can
so
you explain what you mean by that?
it sounds woo, profound and all the rest of it. And
Yeah.
what I see, okay, this is getting into a different area, but it's important to me.
But
We've got real problems with spirituality. I think spirituality is trying to address a really important level of human experience, the most emergent level. I can't tell you how, it's hugely important to me and I think to all of us for humanity. The problem we've got is the state of the spiritual culture, which is varied, of course, and there's lots of very good people. But overall, one of the great problems we've got is that people we've for historical reasons, we have not encouraged the level of critical
yeah.
um, thinking. And so people can say these things and say it in the right tone of voice and say it like this and blah, blah, blah. And I know how to do all these things. I can do the sleight of hand.
Right.
It's sleight of hand. And it's creating an image. And then I've got authority and I will say these things. This is the complete opposite of what we need to be doing. What we need to be doing is sharing our deepest insights with each other in a spirit of mutual exploration, and not to do that. And we have to work at not doing that thing and so it's important to question our own things. So I would like it. I can't understand it, to be honest with you. I don't know why I haven't got non-dual teachers knocking on my door going, you think what I'm saying is all wrong. Let's have a conversation about that. Why do you say that? Come on. But none of them do. I've gone out and spoken to a few from my end, but they don't want to do that because there's a whole thing which they've got going. And
Sure.
and to me, that's not what this is about. It's not
Mm.
building a spiritual career, and it's not having the truth. It's about genuinely meeting in a spirit of honest inquiry. And so if someone says you're wrong, and there's somebody who, you have any respect for at all, I want to know why, what, tell me, because I might be, in which case I want to know. That's what we need. to happen. And
You mean not to say that if you disagree, you're trapped in the ego?
yeah, I mean, well, the common one, the most common one in this instance is you're just stuck in your thinking mind,
Exactly, yeah.
because
And it
that's an easy way out of every question, because
yes.
it's like the very act of questioning itself. It's worked for religions, the Catholic Church, all that for a very long time. That's all the devil. And if you can't question something, it's the perfect way of setting up a cult. And historically, religion has been about cults and still is largely. So
Yes.
this is where we need to move on, and this is why this has been so good for me to
Yes.
actually have to do it to myself.
Yep.
And even though it has been painful, if I'm honest as well, and my fantasy was that I would, when I die eventually, that I would leave these books, would be like, well, that'd be great, Lucid Living. Someone will pick that up in 100 years' time and go, this is such a good explanation of the truth.
And if they
Rather
might.
than, oh yeah, this is the book that the author changed his mind about, isn't it?
Maybe it's a good time to put this in here. I was actually sharing with my partner about this interview that we were going to do. And I told her how we're going to talk about Lucid Living, a book where you put forth, these claims you believed in, and now how you've come to kind of change your mind about it almost entirely. And she said something like, well, but like the fact that like he changed his mind on something like that, doesn't that make you like, shouldn't you like trust him less or like believe him less if he changed his mind? And I was just like, I it was hard to hear that because I might have said something like that in the past when I was following non-dual teachers and everything was about absolute truth and all that. But what would you say? Because my sense is, and you've expressed it before, that and I start to think of it this way too, is that actually I come to be more curious to listen to people more who have evolved their ideas. So what would you say about that whole sense of like, well, we should be, only listening to people who are absolutely certain and have never changed their mind?
Yes. I think, to stumble across the truth when you're young and stick with it for the rest of your life is a
Yeah.
hell of a coincidence.
Yeah.
I don't think I've arrived now. I don't think there's any arriving. I don't think we come up with the best way of understanding this mystery as we can, and then
Yeah.
we can pass it on to the next generation. And that requires constant self-reflection.
Yeah.
So that, it feels incredible that more people don't come
Mhm.
out. And I think it's to do, I see, I think a lot of people do. I think it's the professionals that don't. And it's
Yeah.
harder for them. I've paid a price.
Of interest.
Yeah, you change your mind when you're a professional and you pay a price, because people have, I get people now who are like, oh, I love your books, and they're all my old books. I have to go, I have changed my mind about that. And so some of
Absolutely.
those will be disappointed. And I completely get, the perennial philosophy thing, which, because what I'm questioning is not just a modern movement, it's the perennial philosophy.
Right.
And there's something great. People still love it when I go out and go, look, I think they're all saying the same thing, because it feels like, oh, if they're all saying the same thing, it's probably true then.
Yeah.
And that's good reasoning. If a lot of people say it's true, it's more likely it is. Unfortunately, not always. And a lot of people can say something which is false. And new ideas, well, think of Albert Einstein again. There was a time where the number of people in the world that understood relativity physics was one, and that was Albert himself.
Mhm.
And most of the people who came across it thought it was nonsense, and it wasn't nonsense. So
Yeah.
innovation and spirituality hasn't stayed still. Actually, most of the people I admire moved it on in some significant way, and that's what we need to keep doing. And that requires being able to be criticize the past. And but when you said earlier you've changed your mind on just about everything, it's like, yeah, yes and no. In
Yeah.
one way, I've changed my mind on some foundational things, like you're really consciousness. This is a dream. No, this
Yeah.
is not a dream. Dreams are dreams. This is waking life. You're really you. There's an amazing process of evolution, and we're evolving into something amazing. I think we're evolving into God. That
Mhm.
now, but the experience that I called lucid living, I still have that experience. It's just I call it something else because I don't think it's a dream, and it's slightly different because I ideate it slightly different. But it hasn't. People. The biggest thing I get said to me, one of the biggest things is, "Oh, Tim's become a materialist now."
We
because
would, yeah.
people think the option is you're either an idealist or you're a materialist. And that's not the only option. I haven't become a materialist at all. Something else completely. And
Hmm.
that's my challenge, is to articulate it in a way that if it's good, enough people understand it and go, oh, yeah, he's right. This is better.
Like there's a few directions we can go there from what you've brought up, and I think maybe just one thing I'll say quickly is that it does seem to be a big issue that somehow spirituality is sort of has these like guardrails around it where we're not allowed to question that. But we want people to question, if there's somebody who's homophobic, we want them to question that. If you're racist, we want you to question that and involve your ideas. Thank God, there were people who believed in Nazism that don't anymore. But when it comes to spirituality, there's this real push to kind of shut down the critiquing and the questioning. And so it's great that you're leading the way with that. But no, that's not off limits to questioning, and there's actually a lot of benefits to it. And you were saying that there's a lot of things you haven't changed your mind about, and also important to say, usually I think we say it in the beginning, that again, with all of this that you're questioning, it's not invalidating profound spiritual experiences, whether it's an experience that, an impersonal oneness with the universe or whatever, that it's not negating those experiences, but it's the interpretations and the conclusions, that the ontological conclusions about the nature of self and reality that shifted for you without you having to lose a lot of the positives of that, which is great. So where do you feel like you'd like to go from here? Because I don't think we've even gotten to the world exists in you, did we?
That's where we just been.
Okay, so we've gone through that already. So maybe what we can do here, what I wanted to read, because I think it's so fascinating to me, is so you wrote, the I is not the body or mind. The I is awareness witnessing the body and mind. So on one hand, what I like to point out is just that shift from like the either or, that either you can be the body mind or be something other than the body mind rather than being both. But what you're saying today, and you touched on it a little bit, but just to really juxtapose it now, like the way that you define the self now, that I found so helpful, that expands the definition of self to not just this little voice in your head, but to an entire, what you call a psychobiological system. So the self is not, just the body. It's not just thinking. It's actually this whole ecosystem of which the body and the mind are integral parts of it. But so isn't it fascinating that you said the I is not the body or mind, and now you're saying the I is both the body and the mind that come together to form something greater than the sum of its parts, which to me is very beautiful, and I love it.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of misanthropic spirituality, anti-human spirituality.
Mhm.
Um, and you can see that in the history of it. The way it's the sort of life it's suggested we should lead to be spiritual. It's very,
Yeah.
very anti-human. Get rid of your
Mhm.
humanity. And my feeling is the complete opposite. It feels like, look, well, the next one we're moving on to in a minute maybe is all is one. Well, there you go. I still think that's right. But what I would say is that the individual is the way through which we experience that all is one. That's the idea you mentioned at the beginning of the uni-vigil. It's Jessica, not some other thing, which is really what she is. It's Jessica who goes, oh, I'm aware that although I'm Jessica, I'm also, there's a oneness of being with everything, and my being and the being of everything else is the same being. And that's an immensely beautiful communion. It's one of the great mystical experiences. I'm not denying that for 1 second. I think it's absolutely essential. But
Yeah.
I'm seeing it in a different way.
Right. And that's where you also, there's unividuality that's based on, I don't know that you use it so much anymore, but uniduality. So that,
Yeah, yeah.
either going to the both and it's not that, oh, really, it's all one. It's that it's all one and two, multiplicity and the oneness together. So should we go to that? All is one. I don't have a quote from that section, but
Yeah, well, there's all is one, and then I was thinking actually we're kind of moving through because I think it is all one, but it's not all one because it's all one big consciousness,
okay.
and I think that is or it's all one dream, or is like, yeah, that is a way you can see it. It's just that what you're being asked to believe then is that there's what I call the life dreamer. Well, that's God, really, isn't it? There's God, it's Brahma, and God is dreaming the dream of life, the dream of being Jessica, the dream of being Tim. It's a kind of a beautiful, poetic vision,
Can
but
be.
it's classically mythological. And what I
Mhm.
mean by mythological is you take concepts which are on a very, very what I call emergent level of the
Okay.
evolutionary process, and you're saying that's at the beginning. So actually, what we know about the universe is it's been evolving for about 14 billion years, and that it took a very long time before it became conscious. And now it is. And then from consciousness came this world of images we call the psyche or the soul. Now, I don't see any of that in a reductionist way, just in case anyone thinks I do. I don't think that's materialist. I think that's that the more emergent levels are more than the ones before, can't be reduced. So it's like the flowering of something into something greater and greater and greater. What this view does is go, yeah, but at the beginning, there was already this big mind. It's like, well,
Mhm.
where the hell does that come from? What's its nature? When I dream, by using the dream analogy, which sounds good, but when I dream, it is full of images taken from my sensory experience. So I create worlds. We all do. Now, and it's not limited by by the world, because when I dream of a pig, it can fly because it's not actually a pig; it's an image of a pig. So, but that's the world of images that we experience as the psyche or the soul. Amazing. So, if this is a dream, what's it representing? Where did it arise from? And why like this? And why is it so consistent? My dreams, things do all sorts of weird shit. But here, things are very consistent. And it looks like there's a whole lot of habits or patterns just constantly being played out in the material world, the biological world. I'm pretty confident my house will be at the bottom of the garden when I go back to it. It's static, but if it was a dream, maybe not.
Right.
And so it's really not very dreamlike, actually. This is the foundation from which we evolve dreams. And the
Mm.
idea that therefore that God is dreaming this, it's like, well,
Right.
dreaming? And so my view would be that we need to stop taking ideas like dreaming and consciousness from this very emergent human level and projecting it back to the foundation. That
Yeah.
what's there at the foundation is the simplest thing you can possibly imagine, which is flowered into this. And the
Mhm.
simplest thing, to use the phrase you used before, is uniduality, a
Mhm.
fundamental oneness that's in relationship with itself. Still a very old idea, yin yang.
Right.
There's a oneness, but that oneness isn't awareness. It's nothing. That oneness it just exists. There's something which just exists that's in relationship to itself, and then from that relationship is going to come ever more complex and then conscious and beautiful and amazing things. And that's a very different vision. And I think it's one that fits far better with everything we know about the universe from physics and biology, as well as spiritual experience.
Right. And that's where you get that both and so really you're saying that essentially evolution is that process of that one, if you will say, beingness differentiating. And that's what the relationship, the one with itself, is differentiation on
Yes.
more complex levels, kind of
Yes.
even into the level of consciousness, whereby you could see that sort of that beingness has become conscious of itself. Would you still say that?
Yes, I would say that. I think that's right. So not that it was already
Yeah.
conscious and all the rest of it, and then what it did this is some sort of mistake. Sometimes people think, or it's lost in the illusion and all of that, lost in the dream.
Yeah.
Rather than that, well, the next number 6 is you're a paradox, and I'm still saying that, but not in the same way. So this is a repeat of what I said earlier, but I feel it's so important, it's worth saying again, which is the old idea is
Hmm.
really you're God, Jessica, but you've
Hmm.
fallen asleep into thinking you're this limited thing. If you could just wake up from that, it'd be better for everyone. Whereas what I feel is like, no, that sounds good, but ultimately it's very pessimistic. It's like a very pessimistic view of what life is. I
Hmm.
think I have a much more optimistic view, even though I think life is hard, which is the whole thing's evolving. The whole thing is a process of becoming, and the thing which makes it one is the most simple foundation you can imagine. It's the thing that everything shares in, and everything doesn't share in awareness. It's sharing in being. And that beingness has arisen as everything, including you and me. So the thing which makes us one isn't more than Jessica and Tim. We are it, but we're it at a very emergent level to be able to
Getting
have this conversation. So it's flowered as you and me. So that you and me should be, that's lovely. And all human beings and animals too. It's like, let's celebrate
yeah.
that it's got to this point where not only am I sensing the world, not only can I focus in high definition and be conscious, not only
Mhm.
do I have a psyche or soul, which is a whole nother realm that I can explore and be conscious of, but I know I exist.
Mhm.
You know, I know I am being a body. I know I am being a soul. And if you take that I and detach it and put it somewhere else, you've
Mhm.
diminished this completely rather than seeing it as this enormous celebrating it as a normal success of the evolutionary process.
Yeah.
You've denigrated it as something to be, it's lesser, it's and because it's very easy to put ourselves down, you can
Of
easily get
course.
into that. And that's where you end up with your derealization, your depersonalization, and the really suddenly life can, well, it can have a very negative. Maybe you should say something about that, the negative side of how that can be
Yeah.
taken.
Yeah, I mean, I think well, first of all, I just wanted to back up for a second because so just to clarify, what you meant when you said in the lucid living days you are a paradox was that you appear to be a person, but what you really are is, the essential impersonal awareness. Is that
Yes, yes, that's what I
yeah.
originally meant. Yeah.
And now the paradox that you're embracing and expressing is sort of the one as two, would you say, or that we're individuals who are simultaneously unified on that essential level?
Yes, I mean one of the paradoxes to get, I think even now, which is you can get it straight away, is like I'm not I'm not in this sense, I'm not just Tim
Yeah.
because there's never been, it's impossible for there to be just Tim. There's always Tim in relationship with the universe.
Yeah.
Always. So what am I? Well, I'm Tim in relationship to the universe. And
Right.
you're Jessica in relationship with the universe.
Yeah.
And that's because it is all one. And that
Mm.
oneness, like branches on a tree. There's one tree of existence, and there's your one branch, and I'm one branch, and we're going, oh yeah, you're a different branch, same tree though. And that's the spiritual awakening to oneness, is when you go different branch, same tree though. And then
Mm.
that changes it. That's a profound shift. And that's the shift from the individual to the individual.
Yeah. And I mean, that's right there, I feel like is the heart of it. It's expressed in that one word, individual,
Yeah.
as a paradox. And I've always found, well, not always, because I only have seen it since I've stepped away from it, is that there's so much talk of paradox in a lot of the sort of self-negating non-duality. But at the end of the day, there's actually a very hard resistance to paradox because they're so that it's only one, there's no separateness, or it's only impersonal, there's no personal. And I'm remembering something that you had said to Rupert Spira, and you were talking about how the one in relationship with itself, and he couldn't um, fathom the paradox, and he said, "Well, Tim, how could something that's one also be in relationship with itself? It doesn't make sense." And so it really, to me, highlighted that lack of connection to paradox, where something could be one and two, where there could be differentiation, multiplicity, and that continuity or that oneness. And so, yeah, I love the
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's two things that is common in spirituality, both of which I find troubling. One is actually just embracing one side of something. So, like you said, it's all one. How can one thing be in relationship to itself? Well, my body is a one thing. It's one body. It moves around itself. But here's one hand, and look, it's in relationship with itself.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
it's not that much of a paradox, is it, really? It's like one thing can be in relationship to itself all the time. So, like, but there's another side that I don't like as well, which is that when faced with a contradiction, people just go, "Oh, well, it's just a paradox. It's beyond words. You can't. It's beyond thought." It's like, no, no, that's not good enough. What I mean by paradox is two things that seem like a contradiction, but which you can see actually fit
yeah,
together, and that's key. You have to be able to see how they fit together. So the simple example for me always is, I look up and I go, oh, the sun's rising. And then someone goes, it doesn't rise, right? The Earth's going around the sun. Now that's looks like a contradiction. Well, which is true? Is it rising or not? But
Mhm.
if you understand the situation, you can go, oh, it is rising and it isn't rising. They're both true, depending on how you look at it. It's not a contradiction. They fit together. And the
Mm,
same with it's all one and it's all many. If you can see it, oh yeah, they fit together. It's not a
right.
contradiction. It's a paradox. And that's what I'm interested in. Those
Yeah.
things, not holding just to one side and not dismissing whenever you get stuck with a contradiction, trying to cover it
Yeah.
over by going, well, it's beyond
Right.
thought.
Exactly. It's a paradox that the rational mind can't comprehend. And
Yes, that one.
I really liked how you said that, that saying writing something off as a paradox isn't always going to cut it. That yes, there are times when two contradictory things are complementary and fit together, but sometimes there are two contradictory things that don't.
Yeah.
And that saying it's a paradox doesn't suffice. So that's helped me as well. Um so yeah, where do we feel like going from here?
Well, I feel like we're going to be heading towards the last two. Being one is loving all, and is something which I still very much I think is right.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's like, yeah, you come into that real sense of communion with everything and everyone. And there's this benevolence that
Yeah.
arises because yourself is expanded. You're still you, but you're you now in relationship to all of this, and there's care.
Right.
And I just thought, I said earlier, and I think it's worth just just say for you to say a few words of how, the vision I wanted even then to
Yeah.
convey was one to come into love. And there's
Yeah.
a lot of good people, Rupert does this as well. A lot of good people, doing stuff. Rupert Spira, who I was critical of because he was saying the same thing as me, also
Mhm.
takes people to some lovely places. And yet there's like when things aren't quite true, when true means trustworthy, when the things aren't quite trustworthy, they can turn into something negative, even if you don't intend it. And that's what happened to
Yeah.
you, and it's what happened to a lot of people
Interesting
around
that it's
non-duality.
interesting that you're explaining that dark side as being a result of things not being quite true or true enough. And I'll just say, because you're speaking now of being one is loving all, how in that experience, let's say the experience of lucid living that I had, where it felt like I was this big, super, super consciousness. Like I was this amorphous, boundless space in which everything was arising. And, me as a person in it wasn't really real because she was just an illusion that I would sort of, parachute out into that big mind or whatever that's impersonal. There could be feelings of immense impersonal love. And that was beautiful. I mean, I would sit on a bench and look at couples kissing and just feel tears streaming down my eyes. But there was this sense that like, but I can't have that. And these are just dream characters. They're not really real. And maybe it's beautiful to see that those dream characters, are having that experience that they're not really having. But there was such a sense of disembodiment because if you're disidentifying with the body mind system and you're identifying or experiencing yourself as something disembodied, you and I have talked about is a form of dissociation. And no matter how spiritual you make it, that has a lot of big downsides to it. And it meant that I couldn't fully participate because, it's all just a dream. So at times that could feel really exciting. And I felt like, I could get past a lot of my limitations like a lucid dream. But at the same time, if I really felt that everything was just akin to a dream at night when I'm sleeping, it wore away the motivation. And you can really lose the motivation to engage. It can be extremely isolating because you think everyone else is asleep in this dream world and you're one of the only ones who knows. Isolation, of course, that disassociation, when you start to feel yourself as amorphousness, there's a lot of dysfunction that comes with that. There's a lot of disorientation. And I would say that for me, one of those biggest things was that sense of being what the world is within, but not really being within it is kind of what you've talked about is like oneness with a hole in it. There's this real way that it's a self erasure that leads to everything from loss of motivation, nihilism, and doesn't discount the fact that there can still be experiences there of boundless love. Both and you can have those experiences and it become dysfunctional and be, psychologically unhealthy. So I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah, what a great description that was of, and that's right. It's like that with all the ways that we with all the ideas with which we ideate, is the expression that always makes sense to me is, read the small print.
Yeah.
It's like, God's running everything. He'll look after you. Read the small print. That means he's doing all the really horrible things. Ooh, it's like whatever it is, read the small print. And the small print with this is, yeah, your life doesn't matter really, does it? It's like you said, and you're disconnected and you're not really you. And
Yeah.
so the vision for me, I won't go into it in great detail, but it's what my pod book's about, as you know, is to go, look, that state where you came out and it's like this enormous love, that's real. It's absolutely real. It's just not a detached place. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
If you see it in what it seems to be a more truthful or more trustworthy way, which is you're a part of the evolving universe, you're conscious, and what's happening is the universe is flowering into this vast loving intelligence. It doesn't
Mhm.
come from it. It wasn't there at the beginning and then for some bizarre reason dreamt this world of bizarre suffering and chaos and all that. No, the whole thing has been evolving from simple beginnings and has flowered into us and all of life and is flowered into what we have traditionally called God, which is really like a communion of lots of souls. Just like your body is a communion of lots of cells and creates something bigger, so we're in the process of creating something bigger than us. And when you touch that, it is this enormous love, and it's beautiful. But then when you see it in this way, you don't lose touch with the root.
Yeah.
It's flowering, but and you can go into the flower, but you're still in touch with the root, and your
Yeah.
individuality is the root. And then reaching back into biology, reaching back into physics, reaching back into the universe, the real universe. And the real universe has become the real big mind. It's all real. And when you have that, then it's like all of this is contributing to that.
Yeah.
And that's why I called my pod book Why Your Life Really Matters.
And I love that because it's infusing significance into something that loses significance with that kind of reality denying ontology. But I will just say that, tying it back to what I was saying, that I could have those huge sort of boundless love and something I might have called oneness experiences, but they were without me within them. So I
Yes.
could experience them as Jessica. But now what you're speaking of and what's healed me so much and made s such a difference in getting my humanity back, but I can still experience profound unity, but I get to do it while being a part of it, a participating part of that oneness, a participating part of that unity because it's all relational, and that's what was missing, is that it was having to cancel me out in order to experience something felt as unity, but that you don't have to lose yourself to experience that, and so this is what's so utterly, I would say priceless about, what you're describing because it can allow people to, feel like they can get their humanity back. And when we talk about humanity, it's like, those experiences of that kind of, I am not the body mind system. I mean, that is dehumanizing when you think
Yeah.
about it because a human is
So
a
Could could
body mind
could it be more
system.
dishumanized?
Exactly. So when you look back at that quote from Nisargadatta saying, have your being outside your body, it's hard to not be like, oh my God, like hardcore dissociation.
Yeah.
But again, to be able to have this experience that includes you in it, that oneness that you're embedded within. And so I'm excited for more people to listen to your pod book and be able to taste that and get a sense of how it's different. Is there so you
Well,
said go ahead.
I was going to say that when I came to republish Lucid Living, when the publisher was going, this is a modern spiritual classic, we should republish it. And because, just a little aside, the first time no one would publish it because it was such a strange little book. We had to publish it ourselves. And we set up a company called Books for Burning and published it. And then it was published numbers of times after that. But when I did the last one, they went, "Oh, could you add an eighth insight at the end?" And I went, "Yeah, I can do that because there is something more." And the eighth one that I added was "You are the one."
Okay.
And what I explored in that, I would still hold to be true, which is going and the two ways of understanding you are the one of going, look, there's one of us. There's one. The universe is a universe, and
Mm,
we're all arising from that oneness. So we're one with it. But also that sense of, no, Jessica, you're the one. You're
Mhm.
the one. Live your life. This is it. This is fantastic. You're you. And,
Mm.
you're evolving. So don't expect to be perfect
Yeah.
and don't expect life to be hard, to be easy because you're surrounded by an evolving universe. So you've got to live with all the more less emergent levels. You got to live with biology and life and death and illness and all that. And then you've got to live with a whole load of confused people. But despite all of that, you're the one. This is
Mm.
it. And what I notice is that when I run my retreats and want to take people into these emergent states, into this communion, into the oneness, into God, my great aspiration is when they leave, I just want them to feel like, yeah, my life, that's
Yeah.
great, I'm alive, I'm alive. Not in some naive way.
Right.
Well, like, I'm perfect, it's going to be great. It's like, no, it's not. But you
Mm.
are alive, and it is amazing, and we can reach these states together, and we can harness when I say harness, we can experience this big love and this enormous benevolence, and we can bring it into our lives as best we can. And that's an adventure of a lifetime. And it's
Yes.
and it's why our lives matter. And
Mm.
that's what I want to see. I want to see people I don't want to see people walking out of my retreats just going, yeah, I realize I don't exist and it's all one. I want the
Yeah.
opposite. I want them to feel like I feel much more empowered to be myself now. But to
And
be, to
advanced.
try and bring the best of me out and to really make the most of my time that I've
Yeah.
got.
That's what I think is it's so I mean, there's so much to it, but what's so precious about what you're putting out there is that level of significance that it gives, that it's a celebration of the bittersweet, but it's a celebration of the individual and oneness together. And of course, what you get so much is the opposite, which is that, the individuality is superfluous or who you are is irrelevant at best kind of
It's
thing.
just
So
a story.
yeah, and a meaningless one at that. So
Mm.
uh, okay, so I think that we've covered a lot, and I think that's maybe a good place to stop. Um, is there anything else that you want to say about the pod book or any maybe to mention the your community group that people
Yes, I should mention a few things. Thank you, because I get so pulled in with it. It's been such a lovely thing to explore. It's been really interesting for me to dissect it. Thank you so much for doing it so well. To really go through it point by point and just go, oh yeah, I see what was
Yeah.
good in that, and I see what was wrong in that, and
Mhm.
kind of redeeming really, and quite healing for me. So yeah, I have an online community of a small, intimate group of life explorers who want to explore this approach to what existence is and what spirituality is. We meet every Sunday night. You can contribute what you want. Find out about it on my website, Tim Freak, Freke, and you'll see it there. And I am planning to run one retreat this year in October the 3rd to the 5th in Glastonbury in the UK. And if you can make it, I feel pretty confident that you will have an amazing time because I've done them all over the world with thousands of people and just about everyone has. And it's a place to really get this life enhancing view of what spirituality can offer us and to take that forward.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Tim.